All right, welcome everybody. We are on Chapter 9, Functional Area Social in our CDA studies. We are getting very, very close to the end and kind of gets a little bit easier for the next couple of functional areas, and then we get to a couple of really difficult ones there towards the end. But the bottom line is we're getting really close to being done. This is a very short and sweet functional area. Not very many pages in your essentials textbook. And then, of course, in your competency standards, I think it's only like 3 pages in there. But some good stuff, very important stuff. A lot of the stuff, in my opinion, we've kind of already addressed in previous functional areas. So it's kind of a little bit of a recap, you know. But it is an important one because we've talked a lot in the first 8 functional areas about building relationships and about building connections in the brain. Connections on the outside, build connections on the inside. We've said that a lot. So it is a great functional area, like I said, as a little recap, and then some other stuff that I'll talk about in there. Your worksheets that you will complete for this functional area. You only have 18 questions this time, so again, it's really short, and then I think there's only like 5 quiz questions. So should be a pretty easy functional area for everybody. My plan for this functional area is today we're going to talk about building relationships with children, with families, and with each other, and kind of go over 10 tips to building professional and meaningful relationships. We're going to go over that today, and then the plan for Thursday is to kind of go over how early educators can support play and the power of play and all this kind of good stuff. So I think you're really going to enjoy both sessions this week. They're both really, really good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on the presentation. Let me go ahead and light up my screen so that you can see. We're going to talk about building relationships today. And like I said, and this is applicable to the relationship that you have with your children, your relationship that you have with your families, and your relationship with your coworkers. But mainly today, I'm going to kind of put the biggest spin on working with our children, okay? And it is all about relationships. I mean, it really is the secret to success in this industry is forming that professional relationship, that meaningful relationship. And children are eager to please. They want to please us. When you've got that good, strong relationship, it happens. So that's what we want to focus on right there. Now, the first thing I want to talk about in this presentation are kind of the top 10 things that we do that prevent relationships from being established. And again, y'all can just kind of take notes or you can listen along. There's not really any handout for this. And this is in no particular order, all right? It's not like a David Letterman top 10 list. But the top 10 things that we do to prevent relationships from building. And again, we're going to focus this around the children in our classroom. So first off, the negative body language, all right? We talk a lot about communication, and, out of communication, only 7% of communication are the words that we use. The other 93% of communication is body language and tone, all right? Actually, tone makes up 17% of body language, leaving the rest of it up to body language. Or the tone, yep, and then body language, the rest of it. So, the way you present yourself physically, your facial expressions, the way you interact with your arms and your hands, that means a lot, and that says a lot to the person that you're trying to build a relationship to. Now, I just had this long conversation last Friday in one of my sessions about trying to build relationships and trying to work with children that are nonverbal. And of course, when you have a nonverbal child, the language and the literacy is a big obstacle. So you've really got to rely for your infant, for your toddlers, and even some of your at-risk children who are nonverbal, you've got to rely on body language and tone to be able to form that relationship. So those of you that are working in an infant room, those of you that are working in a toddler room, pay close attention to body language and tone at all times. And children pick up on this. And those of you that are working in an infant room, you know this better than anyone, that your body language and the energy that your body gives off, it really sets the tone for that classroom. So when you are kind of struggling throughout the day and you're struggling to build the relationships with the children, first thing you want to look at is yourself. Hold that mirror up, look at yourself in the mirror. What is my body language type? What is the energy that I'm giving off? Is it negative energy? And that kind of leads us to the attitude part of it. You've got to have that positive attitude. You have to be that optimistic early educator so that you can build the relationship with the children. I think all of us can talk about situations that we've been in where, whether a customer service situation or something at the grocery store, airlines, whatever, where you encounter another individual and right off the bat you can tell that they have a negative attitude. And right off the bat you can tell that this is not going to go well. And you can pick up on the people that do have that positive attitude, that do seem to be enjoying their job, and you are immediately attracted to those individuals. You want to go to those individuals. It's the same thing with our children, and whenever we build that relationship with them. Now, remember, part of the 10 principles of discipline is that adults must see themselves as role models. So as you're reading Functional Area 9, Social, and it's talking about supporting children and building their friendships and supporting children in cooperative relationships with one another, we've got to teach the children about body language and attitude as well. That again, it's not the words, it's the attraction with those two things. And we have to model this to the children, and not only model it to the children, but talk about what we're modeling to the children. And this starts right there in the infant room. And in fact, those of you that are working with the children 0 to 18 months, y'all have got an enormous amount of pressure on your shoulders to get this across, because when we talk about social development, and we talk about the brain being able to recognize body language and attitude, those connections are going to be formed during those first 18 months. And so if kids don't get the connections during those first 18 months, they're going to struggle with this. So that leaves it up to you to role model this, to talk about this, and to get the children attracted to it, The next thing that we do that prevents relationships from being built is having that I don't care attitude, And kids pick up on this too. They're really, really smart. Their intuition is amazing. And this is something else that we have to model to them and talk about whenever you have that I don't care attitude, how that other people, that affects them. And this kind of goes back to the teaching the empathy part of it. When we talk about not being there, we're talking about mentally not being present. And again, we can all talk about customer service situations where you go to try to work with someone and they're mentally not there. So that connection is not made at all. There's like a big barrier or a big wall preventing the two connections from happening. So, I want y'all to kind of take this, and again, supporting our children with their pro-social development. And how many times have you seen two children interact in a classroom and you've got one kid who's really trying to form a relationship with another child, or they're really trying to interact with another child, and the other child is just in la la land. They're just mentally not present. And it's going to, again, put that barrier up, between the two relationships. Now, the difference between the adult and the child is that if I'm trying to connect with someone and they're mentally not present, I'm probably just going to walk away and find someone else to help me or find someone else to interact with. For the child, when you've got one child trying to interact or connect with another child and the other one is not there, it's probably going to end with a punch in the face or a kick or a pinch or a bite, because they're going to get frustrated, and that's how they're going to communicate their frustration. So you've got a lot of opportunity to teach right here. with both parties. So I really want y'all to pay attention to that one. You know, the next one, giving your center a bad name, of course, when we're interacting with parents, when we're interacting with employees, you know, talking bad about your program is going to prevent a relationship from being formed. But, you know, it's the same thing in the classroom, too. And if you're an employee or an early educator who is talking bad about your job or talking bad about the classroom or the school or the director, um, don't think the kids don't pick up on that, all right, because they're listening to every word, and they're going to pick up on that bad attitude or that dissatisfaction that you've got going on, and it makes a huge difference in what's going on in your classroom and the attitude of your children. You know, when you've got an employee that does not like their job or does not like their school, I guarantee you you're going to struggle in the classroom because the kids pick up on it. All right. The next one is a lack of knowledge about what's going on in the classroom. I know that we've talked in previous webinars that, you know, children must feel safe before they can learn. Children must feel safe before they can behave. That's going to take you knowing what's going on, okay? So that when you do see some of these barriers and you see the children struggling with the pro-social behavior, you've got to be able to go over there and support that. You've got to be able to coach them, mentor them, and forming those relationships. But you got to know what's going on in the classroom to do that. When we talk about lack of knowledge about what's going on in the classroom, that includes knowing the children, knowing their values, knowing their beliefs, knowing what's important to them, okay? So remember, I think I've said this multiple times in previous webinars, you've got to reach them before you can teach them. So you've got to know about the children and everything that's going on. You know, the next one, you know, it says not following up with staff, parents, children, and coworkers. You know, anytime you promise to get back with someone and then you don't do it, that prevents the relationship from forming. The thing that we want to talk about with the children is that we make promises to children all the time, and they deserve that follow-up just like any adult. So when a child asks you, you know, hey teacher, are we going to be able to go outside today? Well, I'm not quite sure what the weather's going to be like at outdoor time. You know, let me get back with you. That child deserves the follow-up just like everybody else, and they don't forget about it, okay? When you fail to follow up with a child, that's going to prevent the trust from being formed, all right? So constant follow-up, constant follow-up. And again, I'm going to go back to the role modeling, all right? When we follow up with the children and we create that habit, we create that trend, they start understanding the importance of follow-up. What are they going to start doing? They're going to start following up as well, which is exactly what we want them to do, and that builds that integrity, that foundation for success later in life. All right, so probably one of the most important things, you know, we can talk about right here is the importance of that follow-up, okay? Because again, it's that act of service that's coming in once again. You know, another thing that's going to prevent a relationship from forming is the negative or loud voice tone. We all know that when you've got someone that is a screamer or that aggressive tone of voice, it's very difficult to trust and respect them, and you definitely don't want to build that relationship. And again, I bet we can all talk about adult experiences where you've met someone that was very negative or loud, and how immediately you were turned off by it and you didn't want to associate with that person. And especially if you were in a situation where you're forced to interact with that person, it makes it very uncomfortable. Well, again, it's the same thing with the children. Remember, you've got to see the world from their point of view. So I want y'all to think of all of these things from their point of view, okay? You know, one of the examples that I like to give on this one right here, with all of us being from Texas, and typically in Texas, we're very laid back, we're very southern, we're very friendly. We've got that very casual demeanor about us, and that's just who we are. And so, anytime you do travel, to another state, like New York, I'll just throw it out there. Um, I've worked with people in southern Louisiana before, and even though they're fantastic and wonderful people, they do kind of have this very loud, in your face kind of attitude or personality. And being from Texas, you're immediately like, whoa, back it up. But you got to get used that that's just their personality. That's who they are. They don't mean anything by it. But it takes some getting used to. But, that's kind of a good example right there, that kind of in your face personality is kind of a setback. And we've got kids like that. Okay. Another thing that will prevent relationships from being formed is just not having fun. All right. Everybody is attracted to fun individuals, including the children. When you're a fun individual, the children are attracted to you. The children are attracted to other fun children. So when you have that Debbie Downer that just finds something wrong with everything, that complainer, no one wants to be around that person. Now, the sad thing is that we're seeing a lot more children that fall into this description. At early as 2 and 3 years old, they're just not happy kids. And one of the reasons why they're not happy kids is because they don't have any friends. Well, no one wants to be their friend because they're not happy. It's a vicious circle right there. So that's where you're going to have to jump in, find that value, find that belief, pull it out of them, get that smile on their face, and get them to start having fun. And then when they start having fun, they'll notice how other people are attracted to them. They'll create those friendships. Life will be wonderful. This is a tough one, though, because typically that person that has that Debbie Downer attitude, this is something that is learned. And it becomes a trend and a habit, and it's really hard to get people out of that, to get them out of that funk that they fall into sometimes. When you are a teacher that's working in an early education classroom and you kind of have that we can't do that, or that's not my job, or that's not my policy attitude, the kids, again, they pick up on that. And people don't want to be attracted to that either. Now, again, let's put this in from the child's point of view. And how many times have y'all noticed children in your environment that have that we cannot do that, or we're not supposed to do that, or that's not the rule, kind of mentality? They pick up on it. And it's usually because they've got the parents that have that attitude or that entitlement, and it is passed down to the child. Well, that's not creating a very cooperative environment, all right? Now, there's a difference when we're talking about safety and when we're talking about rules and guidelines. But again, we've got to focus on what we can do, not what we can't do, and we want our children to do that too, all right? And then the last one, giving our children the runaround, saying I'll get back with you, and then giving a different story, and then giving another story. No one likes that when people pass the buck. Go see that person. Now, no, go see that person. Nope, that one can't help you. Go to this one over here. That's going to prevent the relationships from forming as well. All right, let's kind of go over 10 tips to building positive relationships. And again, we're going to take this from the child's perspective and how we can coach and mentor them in the classroom to build that pro-social development. Remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And we definitely want to teach the children this. Next week, our functional area is guidance. And we're going to talk a lot about empowerment next week when we get to guidance and how we want to empower our children. We want to teach them to use an assertive tone of voice rather than an aggressive or a passive tone of voice. And this right here is a nice little preview to it, all right? But when it comes to the pro-social development, again, it's a good one too. So first thing, To properly support the children with their social development, we've got to have a passion for being an early educator. All right, we've got to make sure that everyone that we work with, our parents, our families, our coworkers, and our children, we've got to make sure that they know that we are here to make a difference. That we look at every opportunity, every situation as an opportunity to teach. All right, we're an advocate for the child, and that's a big thing about the CDA process is that as you're completing these 120 hours to apply for your CDA, you're becoming more and more of an advocate for that child. That we speak on behalf of the child when the child cannot speak for themselves. So when you see the child struggling in the classroom with their social development, this is when the passion really, really kicks in, because we want that child to be successful. We want that child to be loved and to love. And so in order to do that, we've got to set the foundation for social success. All right. Um, I say that because if we were to make a spider web about all of the frustrating things that we do in our classroom or frustrating things that we have to deal with in our classroom, we can tie in a lack of social development to almost every single one of them, and it just branches off and branches off. We can also take every single little struggle that we have in the classroom when we're talking about solutions and how we can help the child, and we can tie in social development to every single one of those too. So it's such a great foundation right there. And I think that having that passion for being the early educator, it does lay the foundation and it makes it so much easier. All right. Next one, we've got to be personable. And this is a big skill that we've got to teach our children is that, we've got to do our best every day to be friendly. And sometimes we don't feel like being friendly. Sometimes we just want to ball up in the corner and do our thing, or sometimes we just want to stay in bed, or sometimes you want to tell people stay 25 feet away from me all day long. All right, but unfortunately we don't get those opportunities. All right, especially since we work in a very social field. All right. So sometimes when you're wearing your poopy pants and you don't feel good and you just don't want people to be around you, you got to fake it till you make it. You got to put that smile on your face and you've got to be friendly. Okay. Now, we talk a lot about allowing children to express their feelings and validating their feelings, and it's okay to have feelings, and we definitely want to continue to do that, all right? But being allowed to have a feeling is not an excuse for not being friendly, okay? And we can still be friendly, we can still be polite, and I encourage y'all, and I guess this is where old-fashioned Tim is going to come out, okay? I encourage y'all to please continue to teach proper etiquette in your classroom. Teaching the children to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, thank you. All of those things that when we were all growing up, it was definitely taught to us. That Southern hospitality, if you want to call it that. But and again, when we refer to being personable, I think all of y'all would agree with me that someone that says yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and please, and thank you, those individuals are a lot more approachable than the yeah, sure, whatever, type of attitude right there. And make sure that you set a goal to just make their day. Every single day, make their day. Go for the wow factor. And again, we want to teach this excitement and this energy, and we want it to go back to the kids too. And remember, the smile is the universal language of friendship. No matter what country you're in, no matter what language you're speaking, a smile is always going to bring you closer together. All right. Next one, again, we got to have positive attitudes, and we have to teach the children that they get to choose their attitude. And this is probably one of the biggest skills, to teach young children, and in my opinion, to set them up for success, is that when things don't go your way and you have struggles, that you get to choose your attitude. You get to choose the way you would like to handle this. All right. You can be positive, you can be optimistic, and you can hope for the best, and you'll probably get it whenever you choose to be positive and optimistic, realizing that everything happens for a reason and there's something to be taught in this situation. Or I can be negative. I can be a pessimist. I can, choose to whine and cry, go on social media and whine and cry. Misery loves company. And that's just not going to make anything better. And I do believe that as early educators, we have to teach and encourage our children to keep that positive attitude, and to be optimistic in all different types of situations. Now, this is another one that I've got to go back. You're the role model, and you've got to lead by example. And when you have those rough moments in your classroom, the children are going to look to you to see how you choose your attitude. Remember, you're one of the most important influences in their life, and they're going to model themselves after you. Okay. So stay positive about every situation. Teach the children to be optimistic. Keep those positive interactions. Compliment, the children, compliments the parent, compliment coworkers, and make sure that you do this in a way that, again, the children can see and hear your compliments. Again, this is going to teach them. They're going to model themselves after you. And when we talk about building social development, complimenting somebody is considered an act of service, which is going to help them stay in the executive part of the brain. So complimenting is like practice. All right. When you talk about, whether you play a sport, you have a hobby, whatever, the more you practice, the better you get at it. When we talk about social development, the more you compliment, the better you get at having a positive attitude and building that social development. Okay. Awesome. And again, just work hard at being that encourager. Next one is that, professionalism is imperative. These are just really quick kind of things right here. Always watch your dress code. We want to be a good role model for our children, so that they will do the same. Watch your language and your mannerisms around the children. Have that organized classroom. Remember that first impression right there. Have fun and be that good educator. We talked about the follow-up. Make sure that you proof your correspondence. This is more on the parent side right there. Children don't really care. But for the parent and the coworker part, avoid confrontations. Now that is a big one right there. When we talk about social development, you're going to read a lot in your essentials textbook on handling confrontation and teaching children to problem solve on their own. All right, so you're going to have to model this to them as well. All right. And whenever you're working with another coworker, when you're working with a family, the children are looking to you to see how you handle it and how you maintain your composure. Talk about some of these situations too, when possible, without breaching confidentiality, so that the children can understand how you work through the situation, what steps did you take, so that they can do the same thing. All right. Remember courtesy, smiling, those type of things. All right. Again, this is more applicable to your parents, but it's important for the children too. Really take a look at your center's philosophy, their mission statement, your philosophy and mission statement. Whatever you're selling to the parent, you need to make sure that you're delivering this. All right. Make sure that it's upheld. And I would make sure that within your program, at least once a year, y'all sit down as a group and talk about your philosophy and your mission statement. Have a good open-ended conversation about this and make sure that everyone stays on the same page. How this is going to help with the social development in the classroom is, again, the companionship and the cooperativeness between the teachers that are all working together, and it keeps everybody on the same page. When you keep everybody on the same page, it creates repetition. And as the children move from classroom to classroom to classroom, the wheel is not reinvented every single time. The child is not having to get used to a new philosophy every time they move into a new classroom. Now, the teaching style may be different from classroom to classroom, but the core is the same. And this repetition and consistency is going to be important for their social development. We don't want anything to happen as the children are transitioning from classroom to classroom. We don't want anything to happen that's going to set them back. All right. So that's a good one right there. The next one, you must develop a strong relationship with all parents, staff, and children. Relationships have to be a priority. Social development has got to be a priority. One thing I love to teach, and when I used to teach pre-K many years ago, I used to follow this rule and teach this to the children, and it was fantastic. It worked so well. But teach your children the 10-foot rule, what I call the 10-foot rule. And especially since you're working with young children that are developing their spatial awareness, the 10-foot rule not only is going to help with social situations, but it's also going to help with the spatial identity that they're learning right now. You can start this in any of the classrooms, infants, toddlers, 2-year-olds, all the way up. But anytime someone comes within 10 feet of you, you're warm. You greet the individual with a smile and a question. Well, hello, how are you today? And then wish them a fond farewell. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, or I look forward to playing with you on the playground this afternoon. But practice and coach the children on the 10-foot rule. All right, it's amazing. It kind of goes back to everything we've talked about so far. The being presentable, to being relatable, to having that positive attitude. The 10-foot rule, it just kind of includes it all in there. And I love teaching the 10-foot rule to children. And you've got to be really positive and upbeat about it, and you have to follow it as well. But when you can see a group of 3-year-olds that follow the 10-foot rule, it's one of the most amazing things you've ever seen. That they are warm, they greet one another, they smile, they ask a question, they wish a fond farewell. And this, again, is going to create habits and trends that will stay with them for the rest of their life. It's cool stuff. All right, be proactive. When you do come across a conflict, and teach your children to do the same thing when they come across a conflict, always be the first to speak. All right. So, for example, when parents come in, always inquire about the day. When children come in, inquire about their evening or their morning. This is kind of a nice little icebreaker right there. We always want to offer the serve. This is the act of service that we talked about that keeps you in your executive state. How can I help you? And we want to teach the children that as they're interacting with other children in the classroom, how can I help you? All right, it's good stuff right there. And how can I assist you? Okay, so being proactive, great social skills. And then, always be prepared to handle problems. Now, from a adult standpoint, we want to respect confidentiality. All right, we can teach this to the children too. You handle things within the two people that are having the conflict. We don't bring other people into it. We want to report this in private. Try to talk it out ourselves first. Teach the children the sandwich method. And I know this sounds corny, and I know some of y'all are laughing and rolling your eyes right now, but it works. It works. But teach the children that, when there's a conflict, say something positive. Discuss the issue, close with something positive. Oh, I really like your new shoes. I don't like it when you hit me in the block center. And then, oh, but I like your hair bows you're wearing today. Something like that. Positive, address positive. And then, pick your battles wisely. And this is also something that we can teach the children too, is that we don't have to fight over everything. Um, Next week, when we get to guidance, we're going to talk about the three different types of aggression. And the first one that we'll talk about is what's called accidental aggression. And usually when you've got an accidental aggression situation, this is where you want to pick your battles wisely. It was not intentional. All right. So there's no reason to get yourself worked up over it. It just happened. But it's very difficult for the children. So that's we're going to talk about this next week in length. And then, of course, think before you speak, count to 10 if needed. Very important skill to teach the children right here, that we don't need to immediately address something. Definitely you don't want to address it if you're in your emotional or survival state, because you're going to say or do something you'll regret. So make sure that we use our active calming techniques. We get back to our executive state before we speak and say something. All right, it's a tough one. From the parents' point of view and for the children, when you're wanting to build those professional and great relationships, meaningful relationships, make sure that parents know what's going on in the classroom so that they can engage in conversation at home. So all of the pro-social development that you do in the classroom, from developing friendships to following the 10-foot rule to dealing with conflicts to thinking before you speak, the sandwich method, all of these things that we've talked about to help support social development. Make sure that you also present this to parents and give them some tips and techniques to use at home to complement what you're teaching in the classroom. Because again, that consistency is extremely important, all right? Let your children know what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be teaching it, those type of things. Always give parents, specific names of books, songs, if you're doing field trips, especially if it is related to social development, so that they, again, can support that at home. And then this is kind of just a teacher thing, inform parents of teacher changes. That's a big breakdown in relationship building when the parent doesn't know, what teacher is going to be in the classroom. But going back to, supporting the children right here, I want to remind y'all again, because we're discussing some really good stuff today. Remember that it takes 2,000 times in context for a child to learn a new skill. Okay, you have to practice anything you're teaching a child. You have to practice it 2,000 times in context for them to get it. All right, so all of these things are definitely things that we're going to have to coach and coach and coach. All right. And then last thing right here, have someone come in and do an assessment on you. Here we're talking about a customer service assessment. But remember, children are our customers too. And with all of the things that we teach in the classroom, I think that this is one of the most important ones because, we talked at the beginning of the webinar how important social development is. It's that foundation. So we've got to make sure that we're teaching this right. All right. Have someone come in, whether it's your director or a coworker. Definitely do this before you have your CDA assessment, and give you feedback on how well you're coaching your children on social development, building those friendships, dealing with conflicts, having that positive attitude, being personable, and let someone give you some honest feedback on how you can improve. And the reason why I say this and the reason why I included this in here is that because it is social development, this is one of the hardest areas for us to recognize that we need guidance and help on. because we normally think that we have it mastered when it comes to social development. And it's very hard for us to see our own, opportunities for growth. And so let someone else point that out to you. Don't get offended, don't get upset with them when they give you honest feedback, but it's the only way that we're going to grow and be better at what we're doing. But we want it to be a great situation for the children, and that's why we need to assess ourselves on how well we're coaching these skills. All right. Awesome. So that's my little short presentation on building relationships and coaching and supporting children with their pro-social development. Like I said, on Thursday, we will have a live webinar again. Yay! 2 live webinars in 1 week. And then we're going to talk about supporting children in play next week. And so it's a really fun, awesome webinar that I think y'all will really enjoy. Okay. Any questions, comments before I let y'all go? If y'all want to type anything in on the chat screen, if anyone has anything. And y'all know that y'all can text me or call me. I know I've been in class 2 weeks. I taught director credential Monday through Thursday and then mini conference Friday, Saturday, 2 weeks in a row. So my days were pretty full, but I don't have anything going on for the next 3 weeks besides mini conference. And so, but Monday through Thursday, I should be pretty easy to access if y'all need me for anything. All right. Those of you that are on spring break this week, enjoy the rest of your spring break. I hope that you're having wonderful weather where you're at. Those of you that are in the classroom, have fun with your activities this week. And it's a St. Patrick's Day week, so there's some fun opportunities right there to do some great things with the kids. So otherwise, I will see everybody on Thursday. Thanks a lot and have a good rest of your day.